Hey there, it's Kristen with Somatics. Welcome. I am going to share in this video the inverting and everting of the feet, which is part of the daily supplement, my playlist. And in that original playlist, I have you do this move in a seated position, but I think it's really great to do it lying on your back. Some people find it kind of challenging, but I'm going to break it down really well. And I want you to, before you jump into this video though, do a few of the other movements in the playlist. Do a few arch and flattens, do a few side bends, maybe a couple of wash rags before you jump into this, because this one is going to require a very supple center, meaning supple torso, because we should move from our middles to move our arms and legs. And as you do this movement, if you are tight and restricted in your middle, maybe you do a lot of core strength or you sit in a position all the time, this movement can be kind of challenging. So free up all that tension, and then let's dive into the inverting and everting of the feet, lying on our backs. So start lying on your back, and then let's just talk about what inverting and everting actually means. When you invert your foot, the sole of your foot faces towards the midline of your body. And then when you evert your foot, it turns outward. The sole of your foot is turning away from the midline, okay? So invert, inward, evert, away from the midline, okay? We're also going to do some movement from head to feet, but the head is going to stay on the floor the whole time. You don't have to lift the feet when I get into this movement. That's an option, but keep your head on the floor. Other key points, you want to be free in your middle. If you have a tendency to always grip and tighten your middle, like your abdominals or your pelvic floor or your back or your chest, this movement can be challenging. So like I said, do some previous movements in the playlist before you jump into this one. So go ahead when you're ready and slide a foot up to a bent knee and just give a little tip of your foot outward. So as your foot tips outward, what are we doing? We're inverting our foot. The foot faces the midline. Knee turns out. And then just feel what that feels like, and then evert the foot. Now, I'm going to let my foot roll on its inside edge. The sole is shining out to the side, and my knee is crossing my midline. Avoid doing something where your knee is hanging down underneath your hip socket and your foot's way out here. It's not very comfortable, and you're not really moving your torso. You're just trying to crank your leg in the hip socket, and your leg is attached to your center. So as the foot everts, the knee tips over the midline. The midline is the center of you, all right? So let's see what that feels like on the other side. As you tip the foot out, the sole inverts, shines towards the midline. And you can feel how the weight is tipping into that hip on the side with the knee tipping out. And then when the knee and the foot tip inward, and now the sole is shining outward, my weight's going into my other hip. This hip can start to come off the floor a bit. I'm not really trying to push with my foot though, because eventually, if the foot leaves the floor, you won't have that momentum and that pressure of your foot. You'll have to let the middle of your body roll and spiral with this movement. So we explored the inverting and everting of the feet with the knees bent, but let's just see what it feels like to scoop the right foot. I'm going to call it out. We're going to scoop the right foot, slide that foot up towards the groin, and the foot can leave the floor a bit, and then very slowly release down. Doesn't have to leave the floor if you don't want to. You can just scoop the foot. And you'll notice I'm actually kind of pointing my foot. Be gentle with this. A lot of us don't really do much with the muscles of our feet, and this can feel a little foreign. So I'm inverting my foot, scooping up towards the groin, and I'm lifting my foot up a bit. And my knee is turning out. So I have rotation in my hip, and I'm weighted into my right hip. My left hip kind of comes off the floor a bit. And then slowly letting that release. Do it a few more times, and with your arms, just let your arms rest out to the side of you like a bit of a T, They don't have to be perfectly right angled to your body, just comfortable space with palms up. And just notice as you do this, what happens with the rest of your body. You invert your right foot, it slides, you kind of scoop up imaginary sand towards your body, and my pelvis is rolling over to the right, and my left hip leaves the floor a little bit. I'm actually kind of arching my back a bit. And then slowly release that. Now, if you're free in the middle and you're creating a twist, if your pelvis is going to the right, could you let your head tip to the left? So I got right knee turned out, my head rolls over to the left. And then I feel this left shoulder get a little heavier into the floor. And then slowly let that release. So I'm inverting my right foot. Let's see what it feels like now to slide. I'm going to roll my leg inward a bit so I can get the inside edge of my right foot to slide on the inside edge up towards my rear end a little bit. Now my knee is pointing over to the left. And slowly let this go. Now when we walk and we have a bit of a rotation in our bodies, this is kind of a very enhanced version of that, but as my foot slides on the inside edge, my body rotates over to the left a little bit with the pelvis. My head is rolling to the right. My right foot is everting. It's shining out. The sole of my foot shines to the right. And then I unwind all those efforts and I slide my foot down the mat and let it release. Now again, remember, if you have not played with the muscles of your feet in decades, don't let them cramp. Be very gentle. But I am scooping my foot. I'm not just pulling it up at a right angle like it's in a ski boot. I am pointing my foot a bit and then slowly letting that go. So what's really happening in our torsos? What do we notice? What can we feel? Let's try the inverting again on the right side. So as I start to turn my my knee out and my foot scoops up and inverts and my head rolls to the left, can you feel a press of your left shoulder into the floor? Can you feel a tip of your pelvis over to the right? Can you feel kind of a slight shortening in your waist on the left side, and this hip turned out is opening on the right side? And then very slowly release your efforts. Remember, avoid tightening your middle. You have to let it soften to help the rotation happen. Now, evert your foot. Inside edge of the foot slides up towards the rear end. Knee is tipping over to the other side of the body. Now I'm getting a shortening a little bit on my right side and a lengthening in the left side of my body. My back arches a bit. Tune into what you feel in the middle, in the front of your body. Can you feel the weight of your right shoulder and your left hip into the floor? And could you imagine the space between the front of your right chest all the way down to the front of your left hip lengthen? Can you feel how if you let go of the front of your body on that diagonal, it's easier to do the movement? And then release your efforts. Let everything come to rest. See what you feel like on that right side, left side. No side of the body works by itself, but our focus was the right side. And then let's go into inverting the left foot. Left foot slides, I'm scooping, I'm kind of pointing my foot. You don't have to lift the foot. I'm going to lift mine, and as I do so, I'm going to let my head roll to the right. And then slowly let that go. Sliding that foot on its outside edge and then releasing to neutral. Again, when you're ready, you invert your foot slides up towards your groin a bit, knee is turning out. Your pelvis is rolling a bit to the left. Can you feel the length now from your right shoulder in the front of your body down to the front of your left hip. Can you feel how that creates kind of this nice long arch from the back of your left hip to the back of your right shoulder? And then soften your efforts. Now we live in a culture that says tighten your abs all the time, pull your shoulders back all the time, and we can't move if we're always contracting that way. We need to be able to twist, and we have contralateral movements. So let's see what it feels like to evert the left foot. Now my knee tips in, the inside edge of my left foot slides up towards my rear. I'm tipping my pelvis and my knee over to the right, head rolls left. Again, feeling how the front of the body's opening, there's some shortening in the back, but think of it as like this long, luxurious arch in your back. Space is created in your spine, and then slowly release your efforts. Let's go back to the everting again. Foot rolls inward on the inside edge. I'm pointing my foot gently and tipping my knee over to the right. Really letting go of the front of my body. Can I feel the weight of my left shoulder into the floor and my right hip? Can I see sense how both of my legs actually roll over a little bit to the right to create this movement? Feel the tension that you've created in the back of the body a bit and that rotation. And then slowly let it melt. Be in charge of that release, coming back to the center. So that is inverting and everting of the feet. You could do one way and then the other. So I'll invert my right foot, slide it up towards my groin a little bit, and feel how my pelvis rolls over to the right, head rocks gently to the left. Slowly release. You don't have to do these in any particular order. We could then invert the other foot, invert the left foot. Sole of the foot shines towards the midline, head rolls right. Notice how your pelvis tips over to the left. Now your legs, both legs might roll over a bit. Feel the length in the front of your body. And then slowly release. Which foot do we want to evert first? I feel like I want to do my left, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to invert my left foot, inside edge of the left foot slides up. It's like I'm almost trying to pat my rear end with my left foot. My left shoulder gets heavy. Notice if there's any tension that doesn't need to be there to create this movement. Have you softened your right leg? Can it just kind of melt into the floor? Or is there tension in that leg that keeps you from rolling? And then slowly let it go. Let go of everything in the middle of the body. And then we'll do one last evert of the right foot. Inside edge of the right foot slides on the floor up towards the torso. Pelvis gently rolls to the left. Knee is going, remember, I said it earlier, going across the midline. And my head is rolling to the right. And then release your efforts. Feel what muscles have contracted to create that really luxurious rotation, and then just unwind everything and come back to the center of your mat. Maybe you soften your arms a little bit. And you could follow that up with an arch and flatten if you like. And then that is inverting and everting from our backs. So if you've been doing my video of the evert and invert from a seated position, I hope you've enjoyed this. Feel free to leave some comments below. Let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for being here.